Men are lonely. At least we keep hearing that. And the word epidemic makes it sound like there is one cause and therefore one solution to the male loneliness epidemic. But if you look at the research, there actually looks to be a bunch of smaller viruses all coming together at the same time. And we're going to research all of them.
For 2 months, I worked on this story about the science of loneliness and why it's disproportionately affecting men. But is it?
So yes, men are less likely to talk about their feelings or seek help, but we knew about that way before the male loneliness epidemic got popular. And in reality, the research shows that men and women are experiencing very similar levels of loneliness. And I guess the reason I've redone this story is that there's actually two questions here. One is about loneliness in men. It's about why this number has been getting worse for the last 20 years and what men specifically can do to fix it, because I do believe that loneliness in men is probably different than loneliness in women. But that's not really the vibe you get when dudes online are talking about the male loneliness epidemic. Instead, it looks like we're blaming women for male loneliness. Women that, as we just established, are as lonely as we are, sometimes more. Now here's what normally happens with these videos. People that agree stick around, excited for another video shitting on the red pill and incels, and the guys in those communities or who are starting to identify with those communities leave because they're tired of getting shit on. And so the gap gets wider and nothing gets accomplished. I'm determined to make this not one of those videos. Instead, I want to understand the second question. Why are these communities so attractive to so many of us guys? What is the psychology behind that attraction? And most importantly, does the adoption of these mindsets actually work? Because there's some people getting very rich on this male loneliness epidemic. Let's start with a customer here. Usually this is young men, and I'm interested in this because I was also at one point a young man. Look at that guy. The important thing here is that young people really are insecure, and that's normal. There's not a ton of research on insecurity like in the person, but there is about insecurity in relationships. That tends to happen when a relationship is unpredictable or volatile, and it causes somebody to either hyperfixate on their partner for fear of them leaving or to put up walls and isolate themselves as a defense mechanism. I don't think personal insecurity is all that different. For example, when I was in 6th grade, my mom didn't want to spend $20 on a pair of socks, so I was the only kid in school not wearing Nike Elites. The real ones will remember the Nike Elites. I remember isolating myself because I didn't fit in. Everyone else had something that I didn't. And research shows that our brains process social danger like rejection or not fitting in very similarly to how we process physical danger. And that can create a fear response that leads to isolation, withdrawal, and putting up walls as defense mechanisms. We basically create our own loneliness to protect ourselves. So I was wearing the $6 Hanes pack rather than the Nike Elites, and I was insecure, but I had good reason to be. It felt like real danger. And it seems so stupid now. Like, I wouldn't say I have a style per se, but I like what I wear, and I'm definitely not influenced by what other people are doing nearly as much. But back then it mattered. Of course it mattered. When we're young, we take the identity our parents give us, and when we get older, we build our own. But in this middle period, maybe like teenage years, we haven't done enough stuff to build our own identity, but we've already dropped the identity our parents gave us, so we're kind of in between. And just like a hermit crab on that necessary in-between step between shells, it leaves us vulnerable. This is where it looks like the company kind of comes into play. There's a really popular saying in sales about a man with a hot dog stand. He can change one thing to sell more hot dogs, whether that be better ingredients or a better location, whatever. What should he change? He should change the crowd. Right now they're hungry. He should make them starving. So we have to figure out how creators and companies are making starving crowds out of very normal insecurity. And like most things, you find the answer on TikTok. I created a new TikTok account and searched how to be a better man and self-improvement for men. And I recorded the first 100 or so videos in the algorithm. And you find something weird as you scroll more and more. At first, it's good advice. Work on yourself, go to the gym. But after about 2 hours of scrolling, my feed was full of guys telling me that every girl is a whore who only wants me for my money. That is not self-improvement. But I can see why it works. When we are insecure, it's almost therapeutic to be told that it's not our fault. If we look at the research on guys who were previously involved in the red pill or incel worlds, we see the vast majority started because they felt insecure or alone, which, as we just said, is normal. It makes sense that these companies and creators are targeting this very specific age group that is more likely to be vulnerable than others. Every single one that I saw was selling some course on how to be more confident or pick up women or get jacked. Everything harping on that insecurity. Hungry crowd plus big scary enemy that's causing the epidemic equals starving crowd. Also notice that in the beginning of the algorithm, the advice are things we can control, our gym schedules and our screen time, but at the bottom of that funnel, we have no control. Our loneliness is being caused by someone else. In psychology, that's called learned helplessness. This happens when we're taught or we learn over time that we have no control over our outcomes, so we stop trying. And then it becomes a never-ending, self-fulfilling prophecy. So I'm lonely and it's not my fault. I stop taking care of myself because there's nothing I can do. Why bother? Then nobody wants to be with somebody that doesn't take care of themselves, so inevitably I get rejected. And I prove myself right. Nobody wants to be with me. See, I told you. I get to escape personal responsibility. I dive deeper into the only communities that are making me feel seen, the ones that agree with me, and the blender blends. This is not a new thing. The psychology of fear and helplessness advertising has been around forever. Listerine used the Latin term for bad breath, halitosis, to scare people into believing bad breath was like an inescapable, incurable disease. And then of course, Listerine sells the solution. Just like those influencers and creators and companies use fear and helplessness to turn a very normal phase of life into a full-blown epidemic. These are literally manipulation tactics used by terrorist organizations to recruit young people. So the obvious next question is, what can be done? How do you protect yourself or your loved ones? Or if you're already somebody that's in this world, how do you start to get out of it if that's what you want? Well, it looks like these tactics fold against basic logic and community. One guy saw his brother, who'd battled addiction his whole life, being cared for and loved by his girlfriend. He'd been taught that all girls wanted was money, and here was his own family disproving that. Another guy realized that trust no women or all women are the same is mathematically impossible. That's like 4 billion people. I saw one guy on Reddit, I wish I could find it again. He had a really cool story where his friend gave him a sheet of paper, and on one side he had to write all the things he wanted in a girlfriend. And then on the other side, he had to write all the things that would attract that girl to him. And he had nothing. He'd spent so long focusing on other people that he'd forgot to invest in himself. What about community? Like, if it was easy to make friends, we wouldn't be here. Well, the biggest secret from my personal experience is that nobody cares if you're helping them out. Nobody gives a shit about your acne or your social awkwardness or what socks you're wearing if you're helping them. And right now, there are a million people and organizations that need your help, exactly as you are. Youth sports leagues and the Special Olympics need people who love sports to go out there and just be rowdy to make the athletes feel seen. The Boys and Girls Clubs need people with a heartbeat to rebound basketballs and help with math homework. There are people all around you that need you. And that, honestly, is a cheat code to starting to build community. This is also where the rest of us come in. Like, I think as bad as these companies and creators are for pushing this stuff, the internet loves to shit on young guys that are already in these communities, which only confirms their own beliefs, pushes them farther away and deeper into the hole. Remember, the blender blends. The last question I wanted to see was, does this help? Well, the research suggests that people that get out of these communities deal with lasting negative effects, so probably doesn't work for everyone, but maybe it works for some people, and by that logic, it should work the best for the people at the top. Well, this is clavicular, I think named after the collarbone. Here's him getting triggered by a single question from BBC Australia a few days ago. It was about Andrew Tate, who he hangs out with all the time, fine.
When you get seen with those people, obviously people make assumptions. I'm wondering what the thought process and motivation for you is behind.
Interview. I guess you watched the Piers interview.
I did, yeah.
Too bad I didn't have time to look into, anything about potentially, who your wife cheated with. But don't try to go down that line of questioning with me. All right.
Here's him getting triggered again by Andrew at Channel 5, just because Andrew said, I like how I look.
Every single morning, and you take a look in the mirror, you're 100% satisfied with every single thing. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, more or less.
Okay, dude. All right, well, I guess that's just, if you want to be completely disingenuous.
This guy is more insecure than you are, even with all the fame and the money. So no, I don't think this stuff works. But I can see why it's attractive. If I had TikTok during Nike Elite Gate, I might have gone down a very similar path. So, young guys on this path now, you are better than this. For the companies and the creators pushing this stuff, you are a bunch of dweebs. And for the rest of us, I think we have to be better at showing some empathy. It's because we've all been there before too. And in this way, I hope that we can start to make the male loneliness epidemic actually about men again.